Hello guys, how are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you very much for stopping by. Please, if you've not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. In this video, we are going to learn how to draft this beautiful lovely top. It's very detailed, guys. In the next video, we are going to learn how to sew it. Thank you. In this video, we are going to learn how to make that beautiful top you are seeing over there. Yeah, it's a beautiful flayed top. So for this tutorial, what we need is your pattern master, tracing wheel, tape rule, scissors, your curve ruler, pin, paper tape, and of course our marker. So these are the measurements I'm going to use. So this is my shoulder measurement, my armhole measurement, my bust point, top length, bust circumference, waist circumference, bust dart, waist dart, neck depth, and back neck depth. So I decided to write out all these measurements so that we can be moving very fast. All right, so the first thing we are going to do, I'm marking out 2 inches. So these 2 inches will serve as where we are going to start our measurements. Okay, so from that 2 inches, I'm marking my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So my shoulder is 15. Half of my shoulder measurement is 7.5. So from this point, I'm going to mark my bust point. So my bust point is 10 inches. So I'm going to mark my bust point all the way, and I'm going to connect it with my ruler. So the next thing I'm going to mark is my top length. I'm using 20 inches as my top length. And I'm marking 20 inches all the way. So the next thing I'm going to get is my neck circumference. So the neck width I'm working with is 3 inches by 3 inches. So for the neck depth of the back, I'm using 1.5 inches. Okay, so to connect the curve, I'm simply coming out 6/8 from this point, and I will use my curve ruler to connect it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slant. That will connect the shoulder slant. So from this point, I'm going to measure my armhole. My armhole depth, I got it by dividing my bust by 6, then plus 1.5. So the armhole depth I'm working with is 7.3. Okay, so I'm going to connect it all the way. So I'm going to bring down my shoulder measurement so I can connect my armhole vertically. So on this line, I'm going to input my bust circumference divided by 4. I have 8.75, then plus 1 inch seam allowance. So on the waistline, I'm going to input my waist measurement divided by 4, then plus 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to connect these measurements. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do right away is to get my armhole. So I'm simply getting the midpoint of my armhole. Then from this point, I'm going to come in by 3/8. So I'm simply coming out by 0.5 inch. So that way I'm going to connect my armhole. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to input my bust span divided by 2. So I'm basically inputting my dart measurement. So I'm going to connect it with a vertical line. Then from this point, from the bust point line, I'm going to come down by 148 for my bust dart, and I'm connecting it back to the bust point. Then for the waist dart, I'm taking in 0.75 on each side of the dart. So I'm going to connect it. Okay, so we are basically done with this. The next thing we are going to do right away is to cut it out. So I'm going to add hemming allowance, 1 inch hemming allowance. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is to cut it out. So okay, we forgot to add joining allowance at the neckline. So at the neckline, we are going to add 0.5 inch joining allowance at the neckline and also at the shoulder line. So at the front neckline, you also add your 0.5 inches joining allowance, and also at the armhole, add your 0.5 inches seam allowance. Okay, we've already added our joining allowance at the side, so I'm simply going to make it evident. So the next thing we are going to do is to cut this out. So I'm cutting the front neckline, the back neckline first, because I'm going to use it to cut for the back. Okay, then I'm going to cut out our dart. So when you are cutting out, don't can stop somewhere here, like 0.25 inch before the bust point. So you stop there while cutting your dart. So for this, I'm going to cut our bust dart so that we can open up our dart at the waist. So I'm going to tape it down with my paper tape. So the essence of closing the bust dart, so I'm going to use this to cut for the back. You can see that I have placed the front pattern on another sheet of paper so that I can use it to cut out our back pattern. Okay, so this top, the back is going to be longer, so I'm going to make the back to be longer by 5 inches. So the back will be longer by 5 inches. So I came down by 5 inches, then I will connect it from this point. So with my curve ruler, I'm going to connect it from this point. Okay, so this seam allowance place should be straight as possible. Then curve it down to your 5 inches. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out our dart at the back so that we can cut it through. So I'm simply marking out the dart at the back so that we can cut out the dart also at the back. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is to cut out So guys, you can see that the back does not have any zipper allowance. So for the front, there will be a slit at the front so that it will enable us put in our hair. Okay, so I'm also cutting off the dart at the back. So this is our back pattern, and I will trim out the neckline of the front pattern. Okay, So the next thing I'm going to do is to slash through the midway from the armhole. So from this point, just draw in a straight line so that you can slash through it. So that we can spread it. So do the same thing for the back. So from the shoulder point, from the armhole point, not shoulder point, just draw in a line so that you can be able to slash in through. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do right away is to use this pattern to cut out our fabric. I will do so and come back to show you guys later.